6858 today. Spectrum Business, made to work.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
I'm Jenna Enoch. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. The father of the teen accused of killing 4 people in a Georgia high school has been arrested and is facing several charges, including second-degree murder. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation says the charges stem from, quote, knowingly allowing his son to have an AR-style weapon. The suspected shooter is making his first court appearance this morning. The 8 students and 1 teacher who were injured in Wednesday's shooting are all expected to survive. President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, has pleaded guilty to all 9 of his charges in a federal tax case. Yesterday, Hunter Biden attempted to resolve the case in a special plea, which allows him to maintain his innocence. The president's son was charged with failing to pay $1.4 million in federal taxes and carry out a tax evasion scheme. Sentencing is scheduled for December 16th. Well, summer 2024 is on track to be the hottest year in recorded history, breaking global heat records for the 2nd year in a row. New data from Copernicus Climate Change Service shows summer in the northern hemisphere between June and August was the hottest since 1940. Last month in the southern hemisphere, Australia broke its national record for the hottest day, with temps reaching nearly 107 degrees. Those are a look at your headlines. Now, here's your weather on the ones.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter. We made it to the end of the week, and it's going to be a nice start to the weekend across the Great Lakes region. After that cold front swept through, we have temperatures in the upper 60s in Chicago into Minneapolis. Still going to stay pretty mild across the Ohio Valley today as a cold front sweeps through, and still staying quite toasty across the West Coast with heat alerts in place once again. But along the Gulf Coast, we're still dealing with this unsettled weather pattern. Several inches of rainfall continue to fall, and I'll have an update on when we'll get a break coming up in 10 minutes.
I'm Jenna Enoch. Thanks for joining us here on Spectrum News. This morning, the 14-year-old accused of killing 4 people at a Georgia high school will be making his first court appearance. A vigil was held yesterday for the victims and their families as the Barrow County community continues to make sense of this horrific tragedy, the 30th mass killing in the U.S. so far this year. The father of the accused shooter is also facing charges. 54-year-old Colin Gray is charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of second-degree murder, and 8 counts of cruelty to children. Our Jamila Muhammad kicks off our show with the very latest details in our top story.
Appalachia High School will be closed again today as a memorial outside the school continues to grow. People place flowers and messages remembering those who lost their lives in Wednesday's shooting. The victims, 14-year-old Mason Skirmerhorn and Christian Angelo, as well as teachers Richard Aspinwall and Christina Ermery, who were killed during the shooting, as the community remains in disbelief.
It was such a peaceful town, and just nothing ever happened. I didn't think it would be here.
9 others were injured and are expected to survive. Police say the shooting suspect used an AR-15 style rifle and is facing 4 counts of felony murder. Investigators searched the 14-year-old's home, and they found documents they believe the suspect wrote referencing past school shootings. Now the boy's father, Colin Gray, is also facing criminal charges.
4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of second-degree murder, and 8 counts of cruelty to children. These charges stem from Mr. Gray knowingly allowing his son, Colt, to possess a weapon.
Now, it wasn't the 14-year-old's first brush with law enforcement. In 2023, investigators in Jackson County interviewed the teen and his father after they say officials received, quote, several anonymous tips about online threats of a possible shooting targeting an unidentified school. The teen denied being involved. And although the suspect's father revealed that he kept hunting guns in the house, he told investigators his son didn't have unsupervised access to them. And authorities said they determined at the time there was no probable cause for arrest.
We're heartbroken. A young person brought a gun into a school, committed an evil act.
A community prayer vigil at the football stadium is scheduled to take place instead of the school's Friday night football game. Jamila Muhammad, Spectrum News.
Today, President Joe Biden promotes the work he and Vice President Kamala Harris have been doing the last several years while in Michigan. Former President Donald Trump is on the campaign trail, but his lawyers are also contending with new developments in 3 court cases against the 45th president. Spectrum's national reporter Angie Gonzalez has more.
Vice President Kamala Harris has no scheduled appearances today as she prepares for her first and only scheduled debate against Donald Trump next Tuesday. The former president will do some campaigning today, holding a press conference this afternoon and addressing members of the Fraternal Order of Police in North Carolina later in the day. Thursday, he spoke before the Economic Club of New York.
I took care of our economy like I would take care of my own company.
Before his events Friday, Trump is making an appearance at a federal court in Manhattan. His attorneys have been seeking to overturn a jury's 2023 verdict that found him liable for abuse and slander against writer E. Jean Carroll. She was awarded $5 million in damages, and then this year, a separate jury awarded her another $83 million in damages for defamatory comments Trump made about her while he was president.
This is wrong, but we are in the state of New York. We are in a New York jury, and that is why we are seeing these witch hunts.
His New York hush money trial is also back in the spotlight, as another judge will decide today whether his sentencing in that case will be delayed. Currently, it's set for the 18th of this month. Thursday also brought new developments in the federal election interference case against Trump. Special counsel Jack Smith refiled the indictment against the former president last week after taking into account the Supreme Court's July ruling on presidential immunity.
One of the things that was really notable is there were repeated clashes between Trump lawyer John Lauro and U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan.
Chutkan ordered that attorneys for both sides file significant legal briefs that are now due later this month that could mean new evidence against Trump may be made public before the November 5th election. In Washington, Angie Gonzalez, Spectrum News.
You can watch the ABC News presidential debate simulcast next right here on Spectrum News. Our political team will break down the key takeaways as we near the November election. It all starts on Spectrum News at 8:45 Eastern, 5:45 Pacific on Tuesday, September 10th. New information in the federal tax case against Hunter Biden. The president's son has pleaded guilty to the charges against him, and the judge accepted his plea. Spectrum's Reuben Jones explains what this could mean for the case going forward.
Well, this was a bit of a surprise given that jury selection was supposed to start Thursday. Instead, Hunter Biden could avoid going to trial on federal tax evasion charges. His attorney told a judge in Los Angeles the evidence against Biden is overwhelming, and Biden is willing to plead guilty to the 9 tax offenses he faces in federal court. If he were to go to trial, it would be the second time in months. You'll remember he was recently convicted of felony gun charges in a separate case in Delaware.
This trial would have gone on for weeks. It would have exposed even more facts about his private life and what was going on back when all of these allegations took place. And despite the fact that his father's no longer running for president, it would keep his family in the limelight during this time in the election cycle.
Even if the judge accepts the plea, Hunter Biden could still face time in jail. Meanwhile, in that separate federal gun case in Wilmington, Delaware, he is set for sentencing November 13th. And while the maximum sentence is 25 years in prison, he is likely to face far less time and potentially no time, given that he is a first-time offender. In Washington, Ruben Jones, Spectrum News.
Coming up on Political Buzz, we'll break down the campaign fundraising numbers from last month. Plus, we take a look at the finalized debate rules. The event now just days away.
Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum, we know that internet is a vital tool to help you fulfill your dreams.
My dream is to become a video game developer.
My dream is to get my online college degree. That's why Spectrum has affordable solutions to keep you connected. At Spectrum, we are committed to delivering reliable, affordable internet and unlimited mobile to keep you connected to what matters most to you.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm meteorologist Mel Carpenter with you on this Friday morning. Stalled boundary along the Gulf Coast continues to bring several rounds of heavy rain from eastern Texas all the way into the Florida Panhandle. And we've had a daily rainfall record set in Lake Charles, Louisiana yesterday with some of those downpours, and we're going to be adding to those rainfall totals once again throughout the day today. Here's a look at some of the local storm reports over the last 24 hours, mainly flooded roads across southeastern Louisiana, parts of Mississippi, and even up towards the Sunshine State near Daytona and Jacksonville. We had some reports of flooded roadways as well. Always remember to turn around, don't drown. Doesn't take much to sweep your car off of a flooded roadway. And flooding is going to be a concern once again with flash flood watches from eastern Texas through Louisiana, Mississippi, up towards the Florida Panhandle. Even in southeastern Georgia, we do have a flash flood watch in effect through Friday evening. And the risk for flooding, the excessive rainfall outlook showing another moderate risk across southeastern Louisiana and a slight risk stretching through Alabama into parts of Georgia as well. So going to be another unsettled day across the parts of the southeast, and you'll notice those heavy rains sticking around through eastern Louisiana as we get towards the evening hours today. Definitely not a great evening to be out and about across the Gulf Coast. This cold front, though, however, is going to provide us some relief and also bring some isolated thunderstorms across the Ohio Valley throughout the day today. It is going to help kick some of that moisture off to the east. So as we transition into Saturday morning, we're going to start to see some of that heavy rainfall shifting into Florida, parts of Georgia, and even into the Carolinas as well before we start to dry out completely across most of the southeast as we transition into early next week. So 3-day forecast this weekend, not the greatest by any means across New Orleans, especially as we get into the day on Saturday. That'll be the best chance for more widespread heavy rain. But as we get into Sunday, a little drier, and into early next week, temperatures get back into the mid-80s with better chances for isolated thunderstorms fronts across the region. However, up into the Northeast and the Great Lakes, we have a nice taste of fall in store for us this weekend. More details on that coming up in 10 minutes on your weather on the ones.
If you're just joining us or you're heading out the door, here's a look at what you need to know. The father of the teen accused of killing 4 people in a Georgia high school has been arrested and is facing several charges, including second-degree murder. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation says the charges stem from, quote, knowingly allowing his son to have an AR-style weapon. The suspected shooter is making his first court appearance this morning. We're just 2 months away from the presidential election, and both candidates are still focusing on battleground states. Kamala Harris is making her way through Pennsylvania on a bus tour, touting her plan for reproductive rights. Former President Donald Trump unveiled a slate of economic plans that has been a focus of his campaign. And President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, has pleaded guilty to all 9 of his charges in a federal tax case. The president's son was charged with failing to pay $1.4 million in federal taxes and carrying out a tax evasion scheme. Sentencing is scheduled for December 16th. And that's what you need to know this morning. It's time now for this morning's Political Buzz with Jason Fechner. And Jason, good morning. A federal judge declared that she would not let Donald Trump's campaigning impact the schedule of the criminal case where Trump stands, accused of plotting to overturn the 2020 election. So more evidence could come to light before Election Day.
Well, Jenna, good morning. Happy Friday to you and all the viewers out there. And yes, this is really going to accelerate that argument among Trump and his surrogates that this is some form of election interference, right or wrong, of course, before the election. The judge saying that the election itself and the campaign aren't going to play into her decision as she kind of maps out the calendar now going forward. She didn't set a trial date in this, but it appears that she's going to have several dates set before Election Day. And Special Prosecutor Jack Smith wants to kind of map out the case against Trump, put some new evidence into the arena out there, get it back into the nation's spotlight. And that would likely happen before the election as he submits a brief. And a couple things to really pay attention to, regardless of what happens with this case going forward. Sentence there in New York in the hush money trial, that is still set for September the 18th. That would be roughly 1 week after next week's debate. So there are still a couple of big elements when it comes to his criminal trials that could play out before Election Day moving forward.
And Jason, we're getting a look at fundraising numbers for August in the race for president, which, as we just talked about, is right around the corner. What can you tell us about those numbers?
Pretty staggering totals, especially on the Harris-Walz front. $361 million raised in August across various committees. Meanwhile, same numbers for Trump, roughly a third of that at around $130 million, which is still a ton of cash with about 2 months to go to Election Day. It really does wipe out the argument that we talked about before about a lot of the money that Harris had raised early on was kind of money that Biden supporters had held back. So she is on a record tear right now. And a couple things to really pay attention to moving forward. Harris is actually now giving some money away to down ballot Democrats. And there are Republicans on Capitol Hill saying that because of that, they are now concerned, and they've been out there publicly saying this, that they are concerned that they could potentially lose the House because of this. The other element to all of that money being raised, with only about 60 days to go to Election Day, you can only spend so much of it, of course. So Harris and Walz may need to spend less time fundraising over the last 2 months of this campaign and more time out there actually campaigning and raising support ahead of the election. So a real dynamic to play out, of course, ahead of the election now.
Yeah, interesting points there. Well, with the debate rules finalized, including microphone muting and no live audience, how do you think these will impact the dynamic between Trump and Harris?
Okay, this is finally some potentially good news for former President Donald Trump, of course, because remember back to the first presidential debate with now President Joe Biden, the former Democratic presumptive nominee at the time. Those rules relatively played out pretty well for former President Donald Trump when they met on stage. Those rules are essentially going to be in place next Tuesday when they debate in that ABC News debate. And that's something that Kamala Harris had pushed to change. She wanted those mics unmuted during the 90-minute long debate. Those will stay muted. So But, for whatever reason, Harris wanted that change. That's not going to happen. That could potentially benefit Trump come Tuesday. And obviously, all bets are off on what could happen with the debate itself, how that could impact the campaigns moving forward. So all eyes will be on that debate next week.
I know our entire political team, including you, will have that covered. Jason, good to see you as always. Thanks so much.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Just ahead on Spectrum News, we'll have the story of one man's journey from a tragic beach accident to the Paris Paralympics.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
Give me one good reason why I shouldn't switch to Spectrum Enterprise.
Well, you said our services meet some of your technology needs.
But not all.
Well, maybe you have too many.
Demand better. And when they call you unreasonable, call us.
Look, I'm switching to Spectrum Enterprise because they'll be a true partner, and I can't run this network without one.
I think you can.
Our clients do it all the time.
Demand better. And when they call you unreasonable, call us.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter. What a hot day it was yesterday across the West Coast. We had several heat alerts in place, and they were very much needed as we set some new record high temperatures in Indio, California. 121 degrees yesterday afternoon. Breaks the old record of 120 degrees back in 2020, and Phoenix, Arizona also broke that record 4 years ago, reaching 116 degrees. And across the Pacific Northwest through Oregon and Washington, we had some record highs well into the triple digits in Medford and Portland, and Seattle getting into 90 degrees, breaking a record set back in the 1970s. More dangerous heat in store for us, which is why we have some more excessive heat warnings in place across the Southwest, Arizona, Southern California, and Nevada. In orange, we have some heat advisories in place, and that stretches all the way up into northern Idaho and parts of Washington as well. Excessive heat warnings remain in place across the Oregon region as well, and it's going to be another hot one out there across the West Coast. Highs are going to be into the triple digits across Los Angeles into Las Vegas and Phoenix, upper 90s again in Portland, and we'll be pushing 100 degrees again across Spokane, Washington. However, across the East Coast, things are much more comfortable across this part of the country, especially after a cold front swept through. 62 today up in Green Bay, 73 in Detroit. We'll be in the upper 60s in Chicago later in the afternoon. That's going to feel very fall-like compared to where we were yesterday, where highs were in the low 80s. That front begins to work its way to the East Coast as we transition into Saturday. This will bring us a few showers up and down the East Coast as we get into parts of the weekend, but this is going to set us up for a very nice and pleasant Sunday across the East Coast. As we get into this upcoming weekend, though, we've got several games as far as college football and the NFL goes on Saturday and Sunday in Cleveland. Going to be a pretty nice day out there on Sunday with highs in the upper 60s, partly cloudy skies, very fall-like weather in store for us once again. And don't get used to it because we are going to see that pattern start to flip as we transition into the end of next week with above average temperatures looking likely through the northern plains into the Great Lakes. Still keeping the below average temperatures towards the end of next week along the southeast as we head into the next couple of days or so. So that is something to look forward to if you live in the southeast. However, we are getting close to the peak of hurricane season, which arrives around September 10th. And we do have a few systems that we're going to be watching across the Atlantic basin, none of which are imminent as far as development goes. All 4 of these have very low odds for development, and the system closest to home is going to continue to bring several rounds of heavy rain across the Gulf Coast. I mentioned before that peak of hurricane season arrives September 10th, and after that, we start to see that activity decline as we get towards the end of November. Still a good ways to go for this year's hurricane season.
Tonight, the Gridiron and Pigskin are heading to Brazil in the NFL's first ever game in South America. The Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles are set to face off in a highly anticipated NFC matchup. Kickoff is slated for 8:15 p.m. Eastern, 5:15 Pacific tonight. With the 2024 Paralympic Games underway in Paris, we've been looking at the myriad of athletes representing the U.S. all across the pond. Our Bree Steffen recently spoke to one tennis player from San Diego on his hopes of winning a medal and desire to leave a lasting impact on fans.
Practice starts when David Wagner tapes his tennis racket to his hand. He was paralyzed from the mid-chest down in 1995 after a beach accident. His road to rehabilitation led him to pick up a tennis racket, and he began to compete.
I put the sticky side out after it's stuck in there. So if you go to my push rim, you can see it kind of like will stick a little bit to it. So I have a little extra grip.
Now he's a world-renowned wheelchair tennis player, returning to his 6th Paralympic Games in Paris.
You get a little more butterflies every day you wake up. But for me, you know, my prediction, my hope is that I play the best I can play.
David already has 8 Paralympic medals, including 3 gold medals for quad doubles in wheelchair tennis. He hopes everyone watching can appreciate the talent and discipline all the athletes have put into their sport.
Trying to stay in shape, to stay strong, stay healthy, keep the shoulders maintenance. That's important because they're like our legs. So I love every moment of it.
Josh George is a retired 5-time Paralympian, winning bronze, silver, and gold medals from a career in professional wheelchair racing.
4 of my 5 Paralympic medals right here. The 5th one is actually with my parents in a shadow box in Virginia.
Josh was injured when he was 4 years old and started wheelchair racing when he was 8. This will be the first time he hasn't competed at the Games in almost 20 years.
Paris blew it out of the water. I feel like there hasn't been this much buzz and excitement around a game since London in 2012. COVID sort of threw it off. Unfortunately, Tokyo would have done a great job, I'm sure.
As America gets ready to host the next Olympic and Paralympic Games in 2028, Josh hopes the enthusiasm only continues to grow as people see what these athletes are capable of.
You have these absolutely insane athletes that are doing things a little bit different. The excitement around the Paralympics in the U.S. is always kind of up and down. And this year, I think we have the first opportunity to really pin it up there and make it an event to remember, just like the Olympics were.
Even though David has 24 years of Paralympic experience, he says the honor of representing the U.S. at the Games never diminishes.
Our closing ceremonies are the end of the entire Paris 2024. And it's pretty cool to be part of that as a participant and a spectator and just know that I'm part of something so much bigger than just wheelchair tennis.
Aiming for global impact while going for the gold. Bree Steffen, Spectrum News.
These athletes are truly an inspiration. I'm Jenna Enoch. Thanks for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90 is coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
The 2024 election will decide who leads our nation and the balance of power in Congress, impacting all of us. From Capitol Hill to the Oval Office, let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth coverage with our dedicated experts in local politics. Strengthening democracy by informing your community. That's our mission. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country, and proud to be 100% U.S.-based.
Sometimes in life, in order to move forward, it helps to look back. To learn from the pioneers and trailblazers.
To gain inspiration from those who came before us.
To show us what it means to act with empathy and to show that love has no labels.
Join WWE and Love Has No Labels throughout the year in celebrating people from all communities and heritages.
Because when love has no labels, that's a love we can all fight for.
Women are bad with money. That's what the world's been saying for centuries. But now we've got something to say.
Save it. It's time to save ourselves by saving our money.
Until we're no longer 80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
Save it. The falsehoods, the feelings of fault.
Then, the funds. Learn how to save for your retirement at WeSaySaveIt.org.